Hello and welcome to Holistic Circle Podcast, Spiritual Conversation. My name is Philipp Kobald. We are reaching out to people who are passionate about spreading light, love, and joy. And from Washington State, Sheila Wenger. Hello, Sheila.
Hi there. Thank you so much for having me.
First of all, I'm always happy to invite a colleague. That is so great. You also have a podcast, so this is always perfect because I know it's going to be easy sailing for me. I can relax, sip my coffee, and have you do the talking. So what are we going to see today? It's going to be a story of success, a story of prosperity, a story of insight. And I think for everyone that is looking for a transitional information, how to change the consciousness and how to move further, definitely we will learn something new. So that's my introduction. And I would be very glad to invite you to give a couple of moments of introducing yourself to the audience, your background and what you do, before we then go to the interesting subjects we're talking about today.
Okay, great. My name is Sheila Wenger, and I'm a certified hypnotherapist and parent coach with a background in marriage and family therapy and also a master's degree in education. And I've been in practice just for 2.5 years, but I absolutely love what happens in my office. And when I was studying to be a marriage and family therapist, I had to study hypnosis as part of that program. And it just absolutely blew my mind. And that's what caused me to add that to my credential and open as a hypnotherapist. I love the work that I do.
Okay. The snappy and compressed. It is two kinds of self-introduction. The one that take 15 minutes and the one that take like 1 minute and a half.
Hopefully that's the kind you were in the mood for today.
So among other things, we're going to learn for you how to keep a long-lasting relationship. And always in the back of my head is who wants it? Is this still popular? And everybody seems to be happy to change every couple of years, fall in love again. Everybody likes it. And then the first little holidays and the small cafes in Paris, whatnot. And, then you get a quick divorce and, you can start all over again. So what is your take? It's a funny question, but actually it's a more or less serious question.
Right.
What is your take on the value of a long-lasting relationship versus this adrenaline trend, that anxiety trend to, fall in love? Everybody want to fall in love. Is this cult of falling in love versus the hard building of a lasting relationship? Where do you see the shifts?
Yeah. Well, I've been married 30 years, so very long lasting relationship. But going through life is a powerful, challenging, dynamic experience. Just what being a human being does to you as you go through all these ages and stages and experiences and challenges. So having a companion to go through life with is one of the most beautiful gifts that life has to offer. And if we're switching it up all the time, it does satisfy the excitement. There's excitement and that comes with a new romance, and then you get that over and over, but you don't get the deep, meaningful, lasting connection of someone knowing every part of you and understanding you better than anyone on the planet. So the whole entire point of a relationship, a long-lasting relationship, is that both individuals will grow because of the relationship, and the relationship will continue to strengthen because both individuals are growing. Now, if you look at most couples, maybe not everyone's living it that way, but ideally that is what's going on, because just because we're in partnership doesn't mean we want to stagnate and stop growing. So in my view, a really powerful, lasting, satisfying, enriching relationship allows both people to be individuals, and then each individual shares what life is doing with them, for them, what they're learning, experiencing, what it's teaching them. And if two people can share that honestly and open-heartedly, it turns out that it becomes so strong and interesting and enriching that it continues to be satisfying. So that's the ideal. It helps us go through life, make meaning of life, find value in the challenges that life has, to offer us, and to learn better and better, what we're learning from it and becoming as a result of living.
The numbers are a little bit against us, as you know, that the single bracket is growing crazy. Interesting enough, it's becoming a divide or a split. The ones who hold relationship actually do better, but the majority is going single. Obviously, again, in a world where everything is like online shopping and swiping left and swiping right,
Yeah.
people order food and people order friendship and people and I guess people with all of these gadgets around them feel also a lot more secure than they used to feel. So they think they don't need this significant other to get the stability in life. So there's so many friends on Facebook and so many friends all over that people, compensate it. But yes, as you pointed out, all of the benefits. And then again, it has become also for people so difficult to really engage, open up. And so many people most probably will have listened to you and said, well, do I want somebody who knows every bit of me? Do I at all want to be known? It is an element where one would think that is something very nice. I guess for in this modern time and age, people rather choose the privacy of not being known.
Right. But also, as a result of that, people are lonelier and more isolated than they've probably ever been. So there's a lot of shallow connection that doesn't deepen and strengthen and enrich life. And then people feel empty. So it is the deepening of relationships that make us feel at home, that make us feel secure, that make us feel a part of something bigger than ourselves. So yes, we may be used to this fast food level, immediate gratification kinds of relationships, but those don't satisfy. Going and getting a cheap burger for dinner is not nearly as satisfying, as a good, steak, potato, and salad. The body needs something really enriching, not something that's just cheap and fast. So the comparison's there.
I really like your comparison with the burger. I think that is spot on. More than anything, this cheap stuff. We're buying cheap stuff with no meaning that we're going to buy and just throw away because it doesn't have the value or quality. If you just buy clothing for a couple of dollars, I mean, that's what they're worth in so many cases. And you just throw them away and you don't care. And what comes after me? I mean, who's going to take care of the trash? Who's going to do all of it? Well, I don't care. I bought it, I throw it. And the food, again, there's no quality. There's no life inside. It's basically plastic made look tasty.
Yeah.
And, so you treat your body without respect. So is this the shift that we're seeing? A lot of people being respectless to themselves.
Yes. Yes. In fact,
go.
The relationships that we are able to have with a spouse, partner, even our family members, is only as good as the relationship we have with ourselves. The outer is a reflection of the inner. So if we have a deep insecurity, we're going to feel insecure in relationship, and we're going to self-fulfilling prophecy to ruin it. So if we have got to do our inner work in our relationship with ourselves, how well we talk about ourselves to ourselves, how deep we're willing to go and do our inner healing and our own inner work, will then be reflected in the relationships that we have. So there are a million examples of people who've got something that they don't want to face, that they've got some trauma they don't want to heal. They just want to pretend everything's okay. So the world will see a shiny object, everything looks good. But if they're not good inside, then in relationship, that problem will create a problem within the relationship. So meaning really does come from the depth of knowing ourselves, healing ourselves, being aware of all of the parts of ourselves. And when we do that, we have the level of awareness of when something is going on inside of us. what's happening, how we're feeling. We can speak our truth about how we're feeling, and then engage in a relationship that is productive, helpful, supportive, and enriching. But anything we're denying for ourselves, pretending for other people, our relationships outside of us will only be as good as that. So they will be empty and less fulfilling that way. So it all comes down to the meaning of life. To really love life, it's an inner journey. It's not an outer journey. Of course, we all have to have jobs. We have to make money. But it's not the what, it's the how we do the things we're doing because of how we are inside. So our subconscious mind controls 95% of our behavior. So whatever beliefs we have in our subconscious, that is as equal to the life that we can have. So for example, someone who was neglected as a child, just didn't get attention, just didn't get encouragement. It was just sort of brushed aside. The subconscious records anything that it can't emotionally quite handle. So a young child feeling that way has the experience of their parents are God to them because they're just a little child. Parents know everything. And if they can't get the sense of deep, satisfying love, they don't think something's wrong with the parents. They think something's wrong with them. And they have to find out, how do I get love? And it changes them into something, a false self. Because in the subconscious mind, that now child has to figure out, how do I get love? You better find a way because I can't stand this feeling. So that pattern will live in the subconscious mind until it gets healed and eradicated. So I'll have 50-year-old people in here or 40-year-old or somewhere in there, and they will still feel unlovable because the subconscious is still telling them that they are from way back when. And until we get into that subconscious and heal it at the source, they'll take that feeling of unworthiness and they will attract people who don't treat them properly because they'll think that's what they deserve.
So we already basically made a transition from relationship to your work, and that would have been my next question. Anyway, you basically jumped the gun. If that's also what this relationship elements, if they're a part of your work as hypnotherapist.
Oh, absolutely. Because when people are struggling, it's because one or both of them has an underlying issue that's creating a communication problem or creating an enmeshment pattern or some kind of pattern where both people are not empowered. And a classic example is someone who was raised by a narcissist. Their version of love is skewed to an unhealthy version of love, but that's all they know. And so when they grow up and seek romance, they will feel at home with a narcissist. So they'll be attracted to someone who is not healthy in any way, and the relationship will have terrible problems, but it's all stemming from the fact that they were raised in that, and that's their only version of love that feels comfortable to them. Does that make sense?
Yes, I'm just wondering that this. I know there are always popular themes within the structure, and narcissist is just such a popular term, right?
Yes.
It's almost like a trend, and we've been hearing it a lot. And I heard it too much,
Okay.
so I started to question the term. I'm starting to get a problem with the term,
Okay.
and if we're not using it too often if we're not using this term a little bit too often for too many people, that I'm not always sure that they really qualify as a narcissist for real. And because I had some people on the show clearly had a narcissist father or a narcissist mother, and this was like a textbook case.
Yes.
And this is a real traumatic experience. And I've met a lot of people who are like, oh, my narcissist father, I know the guy. And I'm like,
Gotcha.
I mean, maybe he's not roses, but I mean, come on, give the guy a break. He had a work, he had a tough calling, and he provided. And maybe he was not roses every evening coming home, but look at the guy, So it is a bit of an element right now, these terms. But yes, if it's a clear narcissist, I'm with you. I mean, it's a hell of a child.
Yeah, well, it comes up for me because I've had a couple of clients recently who truly were entangled with truly a narcissist. And it's one of the hardest things to separate somebody from. It's very, very hard for them to leave the pattern because it entangles and wrangles their brain into a different way of thinking. So it's been on my mind because I've been working very hard lately with clients who are, legitimately doing that.
But I also seen, and this is something that's why I'm getting touchy of this, and I should speak out more often, because by the end of the day, I'm becoming a bit of a culture of victimization. If you look at children, everybody's a victim, everybody has a HDD or God knows what, and then everybody like, what can we do? He has diagnosis. And it's the same with a lot of people don't want to do the inner work because like, my father was a narcissist, what can I do? That's what it is. So we're coming a bit of in a culture where everybody's carrying their badge, and I'm just waiting people running around the city with their diagnosis on the pin, and like this is my diagnosis. I mean, you got to treat me that way, Do you see this also?
I do, but I'm really glad you bring that up because you're absolutely right, and our culture is missing a very important set of tools. In school, we're not taught how to use the power of our own consciousness and our own minds. So the normal, typical therapeutic model, it does spend so much time on the negative and on the past. And in my practice, while we heal the past, I teach my clients how to use their consciousness, how to use their thinking mind, how to use all the powers that they were given that nobody's taught them how to use. So for example, we are not victims. But if we rely solely on our thinking mind, we're not using our most powerful tools. So the imagination and our intent for our lives is supposed to be the captain of our ship, dreaming and imagining where we want to go, what we want to become, what we want to grow into. When we use that force of our consciousness, we become inspired and energized and excited to go do it. And then we can use our thinking mind as the servant that was always meant to be. Our thinking mind is based on our past and what it's learned from our past, and it can get things done and figure things out for us, but it's going to do that based on what the past has shown it so far. So if you only rely on that thinking intellect, then it's going to keep regurgitating what it knows from the past. But if you use your imagination and your inspiration and you dream what you long for, then that mind of yours will get to work and get things done for you. It is meant to be the servant, but it's run amok in most people. It's just the analogy I love to use for that voice in somebody's head. If someone's got that voice in their head that's maybe critical of them, or it discourages them, so, you want to engage in this endeavor, but 50,000 other people are engaging in that endeavor, and it's discouraging you. The reason that voice is running amok is because it's not supposed to be in charge. And the analogy I love to use is that it's some teenagers in a classroom, some rowdy kind of teenage students with a very bad substitute teacher in the classroom. They're not going to work hard that day. They're going to take over the classroom, cause trouble because they know they can get away with it because no one's being a good leader in that classroom. That's what this is. If that's completely in charge, that's why people have these thoughts in their head that they can't get a handle on, because that's not supposed to be in charge. Our imagination, our inspiration, our intent is supposed to be the captain of the ship, and our intellect and our left brain is supposed to be the servant of that, getting the work done so that we go there. And so there's so much work to be done there and just learning how to be empowered. And one of the ways that we do that is that if we have that voice running in our head that we have not tamed, then we can talk back to it in facts. And it can't deny factual information. So let's say somebody's voice in their head says, my family was always poor. We never had money. I have to work so hard to get even caught up in life. And it's just always been that way. There's a belief in the system that they're not going to be successful, but you can then talk back to that voice and say, you know what though? I've got this big dream. I'm willing to work for it. I'm in love with it. I feel like I'm meant for it. So I might just be the one who breaks that cycle. And because I really want to do that right now, today, I'm already taking those steps so that I won't be stuck there where my parents were, where the last 3 generations were. And when we talk to that voice in our head, and it's undeniably factual, what we say to it, it will eventually stop giving us that negative thinking because it gets a response back which overrides it. And over time, that's a slower way to do it. Hypnosis is faster, but it's a way where over time it will submit to your higher self. Does that make sense?
All right. Let's stay a moment exactly there. So do you have your own theory why we've forgotten this quality, why the society has changed over the past 30, 40 years into a society that is run by the wrong side of the brain, so to say? And most people, I call them almost like zombies. I don't mean it negative, but it's more like, it's like an autopilot. Maybe that's a nicer word to use than zombies. But they walk and they're clearly not in charge of their own life and their own mind. And they feel a victim, they feel I have HDD or whatever, they carry those diagnoses. People have all these diagnoses, but not as many as they think. That's the point. Kids have these issues, but by far not as many as run around with this diagnosis. So
right. Well, one of the biggest impacts that is affecting us this way is that, when I was raising my twins, all these devices were coming out, and we were able to put them in front of our kids' faces before we had those. And I was very cautious about it. I saw this happening, and it was very appalling to me because children need to come up with their own ideas. They need to have manipulable toys that they can decide what to do with. It's the decision making internally that helps their brain grow and learn and become, more and more mature. So when that was taken away and dramatically reduced by a screen where they're only basically being stimulated, they can still manipulate on the screen, but it's just on a screen. It's not in the 3D world. They're not interacting spatially and sensorially with their environment. That changed a lot. And then they got used to being stimulated rather than stimulating themselves by engaging in the 3D world and learning more complex processes as they progressed. And so that is a major issue. And we all know that these devices, our cell phones, they are addicting. I've heard so many grown adults tell me about, that they find themselves scrolling. They find themselves on the couch just scrolling. How does this happen? Because it's a dopamine hit that we get from it. When we get an email, ding, and oh yay, someone's paying attention to me, or we get a like on our social media or whatever. Those are dopamine hits, and we become emotionally addicted to that rather than being trained for the long-term disciplined practices that create long-term satisfying results that are deeply meaningful. So that's a major issue. And it's a really tough one to tackle because I know a lot of parents, I'm a certified parent coach too, and a lot of parents really want to shelter their kids from these things. They really want to do what I said and let their kids manipulate in the 3D world. But at some point in the raising of their children, what becomes very difficult is they absolutely need to fit in. They have a strong need to not be the one kid who stands out as the weirdo. So if the vast majority of people are doing this, then at some point parents feel they have no choice but to give them what all the kids have so they're not ostracized. So it's Gloria de Gaetano coined the term a industry-generated culture. Generated by profit-making, generated by industry influencing what the culture is and does. And that's a bit scary.
So basically we have a simple solution, which is to tune in the whole of America and you make a hypnosis session and get it out of the system.
If only it were that simple, yes. Yeah.
I think that is where we're going now. Every Wednesday, 3:00, CNN, whole America, tune in, and you're going there and just fix it.
Well, they can also listen to my podcast because my podcast, which is Shift is Happening, is all about empowering you from inside. Because most people, and this is a big point, most people look at the outside world, they think it's just all solid, that's the way that it is, and they're basically assuming that it is what we hear on the news. That's what's going on in the world. Well, the news is completely biased toward the negative. They don't just talk about anything that's happening. They take the worst things that are happening. Only the worst thing. So if people are watching the news and thinking this is the world, they think this world is absolutely falling apart. And then that's agitating them, putting them in a fear state, an anxiety state. And then they feel like, oh my gosh, how do I get my family fed and my career figured out and my household run and pay for college and solve all of these problems that are everywhere? So living outside in does us very little good. It's not a healthy way. It's not an empowering way to live at all. Back to what I said earlier, it is an inner journey anyway. So when we are working on what we are about, what our inner guidance system is telling us about what we value, what we cherish, what we want to live for, and what we want to stand up to not live for, and we start with that, then the outside begins to reflect that back to us. And it's a much more empowering and healthy way to live. So, for example, one might think, I want to, I have a passion for what I do, and with what I do and everywhere I go, I want to serve with kindness, compassion, and love. Okay. If we just know that that's what we want to do, and someone else comes up to us and they're obnoxious and they're rude and they're disrespectful, if I know that I want to live in a world with kindness, compassion, and love, then I'm not going to react back and be just the same way that person was to me, because I know what I'm here for and I'm about and what I believe in. So I will show up as that, and that will create an interaction that heals and serves rather than escalates and enrages. And everywhere I go, I will see how that's, the world around me is becoming more peaceful, more communal, more understanding, more beautiful. So it's far more healthy to focus on being the world we want to be everywhere we go and watching that world unfold around us.
Right. Just a small note, because my viewers are pretty global. I have a very global viewership, and especially negative media spiral is in many countries among the US. And luckily we have some countries left, for those who are watching now, that actually still have valuable media who are not just determined on bringing you into fear. So we have some pockets left on this planet.
Glad to hear it. I'm thrilled to hear it.
Yes. Getting smaller every day, but they're, still there.
Yeah. Yes. Well, it is important for everyone who is not in that situation to hear what I just said and to be living that way. Maybe they already are, but can't be said enough. It can't be overstated.
And I also always want to encourage people to take a bit of more effort, because there is even media also in the US that's not biased, that is more like old school media, and you can find it. And of course, they have to talk about an earthquake, and that is scary. But they also have to balance it out with good stories of new science coming out, or people
Yes.
going and cleaning the rivers. So it's the balance that's important. And I mean, no news should be only happy. I mean, that's ridiculous. But it's also a way of presentation and putting things into context. So, and by the end of the day, we should all support financially media that is good, that is fair.
Yes.
And if we take our $10 a month, let's put it somewhere where actually it makes a sense.
I 100% agree with you. Absolutely.
Because as you said, we're the captain of our own mind. So we are the captain of our apps. And we are most definitely the captain of our $10. So I guess it would make a huge difference if we become conscious and put also our money where actually it brings back some positive.
100%. And that's what so many people have forgotten, is that we are the captain. We're the captain of our minds. We're the captain of how we feel, which, keeps us inspired and energized. We are the captain of our apps. It's not that these cell phones by themselves are evil. They're not. They're just powerful. They do a whole bunch of wonderful things. But are we in charge of how we're using them or not? We have to be looking at that. Are we just handing them to children without any guidance? That will not be helpful.
I just had a guest on the show who said that she can't do it. So, but she don't want to do it. So she every Friday is deleting all the apps, the social apps. Every Friday she's deleting it, has a wonderful weekend with the family, because when they're on their phone, she gotta go and check it out. But when they're off the phone, and then, Monday morning she's putting them back on, and it's a radical way, it's a crazy way, but by the end of the day, her family and her weekends are much better.
Absolutely. And I think that when families have gatherings, extended families come for gatherings, there should be a basket when you walk in the door. Put the phone in your basket. Let's be together. Let's interact. Let's have conversations and play games and really be human together. And, pick them up when you leave. There should be ritual.
Or just to finish up the subject, I'm in some crazy way, I'm hopeful for the next generation, because they so grown up with it, and they're also fed up with it in a certain way. So I'm kind of positive that they will handle that better than we did. It was just new for us. It was exciting, and it was just a novelty. So we needed a moment to learn. But you're right, we are under immense attack from the corporate world, just to make us zombies, to make us autopilot, and just shovel stuff into us. And that's an issue, because they have developed such strong tools and strong weapons to control our mind. So we have to also, on the other hand, basically buckle up and raise our consciousness to meet this challenge. And that's all there is. It's a power game, we against them. I mean, it always has been. So we have to, people had kings in Europe, and they went on the street and kicked them out of the country, for crying out loud. And they had the army and the police, and they stabbed people along the way, but they said enough is enough.
Yes.
So why would we not be able to tell the social media guys enough is enough?
Right. Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I do think that I hope with you that the trend will shift. As a business owner, business owners even have to deal with, do I do social media or do I not? And that's a difficult challenge. I don't want anything to do with it, frankly. But it is a way that people find out what you
and having a YouTube channel.
I do have a YouTube channel. Yeah, that's a little different, isn't it? It is to me.
No, it's nothing bad. I'm not one of these guys who just blame the whole world on the social media. It's just
Right.
how we take it, how we use it, how we manifest it and transform it. Nothing's bad with the tool. It's always the way and the boundaries.
Yes.
That's the key.
That is the key.
And we have to learn this and But let's come to the end of this part because we're here to talk about hypnosis, but we had to pay some groundwork. So can you give us a quick overview? What are the main problems that people seek you out before we go into solutions? A little bit of overview would be lovely.
Absolutely. So people come to me for a vast array of issues, but they all come down to a few categories. Habits that they can't stop themselves because it's become a part of their subconscious. Fears, physical and emotional issues, relationship issues, and trauma. So all of these issues, almost always something got laid down in the subconscious that is creating a repetitive pattern in someone's life where they feel like, oh my gosh, here I go again. I keep having to feel the same thing or do the same thing. I keep, wanting to get healthier, but somehow every night I'm drinking, or somehow every, morning I'm craving sweets or whatever it might be. So there's a complicated reason why all that's going on, and it lives in the subconscious. And so for trauma, if someone, experienced trauma, their subconscious held on to a belief about them that they had to believe in order to keep safe. So, for example, someone's childhood home could be so tumultuous and borderline violent that they could become a child who has to keep themselves safe. So they become a watchful person when they grow up that's hypervigilant. And they just don't believe that good things happen unless they make it happen. So they have too much fear, too much anxiety, too much stress, too much cortisol in their system because of this belief. And so similarly with habits, let's take someone who's been smoking for a long time or eating for a long time. Underneath the surface of that habit is a feeling they probably don't want to feel that may have come from past experiences, past difficulties. Usually when people start smoking, it's because of wanting to rebel against something that feels wrong to them, and they're going to make someone angry by smoking, or they're trying to relieve stress because there was some stressor in their life. So if someone's got this habit going on, underneath the habit is a feeling they did not want to feel. Almost always. And that lives in the subconscious. So if we only do cognitive behavioral therapy or talk therapy, it's a lot harder to get to the subconscious level. When someone's deeply emotional, they have better access to the subconscious. But other than that, it's more on an intellectual level that the work is being done. But the issue still lives in the subconscious. So the reason that hypnosis is extremely effective is because it's a tool that can get directly into the subconscious. For example, with age regression, if a client has this feeling of, let's just say, inadequacy, a lot of people feel like they're not enough. Lots of reasons people walk around feeling they're not enough, not good enough, not smart enough, not successful enough, whatever, not beautiful enough. When that client will bring up that feeling that they've been feeling for far too long, it's a somatic signature in their body. Some people feel it in their chest, some people all over, they might feel it in their gut, but it is a somatic signature that is exactly identical to the first time that they felt that when the trauma happened. The first time they felt that they were not enough for their parents or their teachers or whatever it might be, that feeling came into their stomach, for example. And it's the same one they're feeling now, decades later. So with hypnosis, you can tap into that feeling and ask the subconscious to find another time that it felt that way until you get back to the earliest moment that they felt it. That is called the initial sensitizing event. Before the initial sensitizing event, they were a normal kid, normal, happy-go-lucky kid. But then this thing happened and, oh my gosh, I can't handle this feeling. And now I have to just become the kid who prevents this feeling. So since you've got access to where it lives in the subconscious, you then can heal it. And there's a misnomer about what heals. It is not time. If it were time that healed, then there wouldn't be all of these people dealing with their childhood issues that are causing current problems now. Time did not heal it. What does heal a wound is fundamental truth. So that what lives in the young child is a belief that something's wrong with them because they tried their best, but they got this terrible reaction from somebody. So they have to conclude something's wrong with me. I did my best and it's not enough. I'm not good enough. That's where the belief lives. So to heal it, quite fascinating, the grown-up client in my chair that's reliving this experience, I'll ask them, can you see that child in your mind's eye? And they'll, of course, say yes. And then I can ask the grown-up, look at that child and what they were just doing. Is there anything wrong with him? Is he in fact really inadequate here? Or did he try his best and just needed a little guidance? They can see and prove to themselves that it wasn't the child's issue. It was the way that the adult dealt with them because of their own issues. So the grown-up sees that there was never an inadequacy in the child, that it was just a matter of the circumstances. And then in that moment, they can take over for the child and say, you don't ever have to worry about that again. You don't have anything wrong with you. You just needed guidance and support. And then you would have, grown up and blossomed perfectly. At that moment, the grown-up in my chair becomes protective of the child self, and then becomes protective of them and becomes the person who knows the truth of them. They're not inadequate. And it actually relieves the feeling that client has felt over and over again their whole lives. And I had a 77-year-old woman who had never done therapy. And she always felt like she had to people please, basically. And that her sister in particular just didn't care what she had to say. And she kept feeling like her whole life she was trying to prove to her sister that she was worth something. And she was always chasing her down and trying to get close to her and never feeling satisfied. So we did this exact technique, and she realized there was nothing wrong with her. She was worth caring for and valuing. And we get to the end of the session and I ask her how she's feeling. And she says this, I don't know. I have never felt this in my whole life. So she, for 77 years, had been carrying a belief in her subconscious that was making her feel a certain way. And now she's feeling an entirely new way. And then she said, oh my gosh, I can let my sister go. She can call me if she wants to talk to me. 77 years has gone on, and now she knew that it didn't have to be that way anymore. So I have lots and lots of stories like that where someone does a turnaround after that session because they now are completely aligned with what's true about them, and they know it. They know it inside of themselves.
So just to a little bit clarify, so that the benefits of hypnotherapy here is that compared to a regular like spiritual self journey or working with the stuff and so forth, it's not only that it's quicker. I think that's, of course, maybe one of the obvious reasons.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's just value because it's more raw or more to the point. It just focuses directly. If you do the inner journey, you have to walk many ways. Nobody can go directly to the. We're not that self-aware that we have this kind of an insight to know precisely where the shoe hurts. And so it sounds to me that your way quickly takes away all the gravel and layers it back.
Yes.
And so it is time effective, but also it is very much on the point. Would that be okay? A good description?
Yes, absolutely. Because in regular talk therapy, you may have to do this entire family history, but there's really just one particular pattern. That's the big pattern existing in the client. So all of that extraneous information isn't necessary. It's just the main pattern that is the most important thing to focus on. When that pattern can be eradicated, they feel this tremendous relief.
Now, how is then the lasting effect? Is this something that has to be repeated a couple of times, or once you lift it, it's poof, it's gone, like with a magic wand? Or is this then work to be done?
Great question. Yes, there is still work to be done, but what's notable is the dramatic sense of relief that they now know there's nothing wrong with them. But there is more work to be done, and here's how. If you didn't have a healthy childhood where you got to healthfully go through the ages and stages that you're supposed to develop through because you didn't have parental guidance and care through that process, you may not have a very strong sense of self. So you may now know that you always deserved the attention and care that you didn't get, but that doesn't mean that you got all the developmental stages, right? So when someone goes through a process like that, the work that's left to be done is you can go through those developmental stages quite quickly, but you may have to really spend some time with yourself and find out, what do you like and dislike? Because if someone's been people pleasing their whole life, they don't know who they are except for 4 other people. So then after that session, I'll tell them, it's time for you to go through some of these younger stages now. You'll do it quickly, but you may feel tantrumy. You may feel like someone has expectations of you and you just don't wanna. That's a normal childhood stage you may not have been able to go through if you had to please and you had to perform. So if you feel that way, just know that that's normal. It won't last a long time. It's you getting a sense of what you're not about. And that's an important stage you have to go through. So when they have the guidance, of knowing what's going to come next and what to do through that, they can get through it fairly quickly. It doesn't take years and years and years. It takes sessions and sessions and sessions. It's a fraction of the time.
Are you following up with it as part of your work, that you're staying with the people while they're going through that? Are you some bounce back? Are you controlling mechanism?
Yeah. So after a session like that, then they'll come back and I'll see where things are now and help them, through those stages. Another thing that happens after that is done, underneath the trauma layer that they've healed is often an anger layer that then the iceberg melts. And now we've done a lot of the healing, and now there's this anger that's in there, and that needs dealing with too. And so there's a session on, the anger that's inside of them needs to be expelled out because they never had a chance to express it before because they didn't have any power. Okay. So now it's all, suppressed inside of them. And so then that is another stage that needs to be done so they can truly forgive. And again, as I said, that it's truth that heals. Somebody can forgive terrible events when they can understand that there was a backstory to it that had nothing to do with them. When a person can realize, believe it or not, they were trying their best, but they had this residual stuff that was passed down to them, that can allow them to forgive, as well as being able to express all of the anger and hurt that they did experience. Those two things can help them forgive, and then that even creates another layer of deeper peace within them. And then, they really, after those two things.
So how many sessions? So how often do usually client, or how long clients stay with you in such a process?
Yeah, in a process like that, 5 to 6 sessions, they'll be feeling dramatically different, and then, functioning completely differently than when they came.
Does it happen that people after some time maybe fall back to this so familiar and so learned? If you 70-year-long have a pattern and it's so imprinted in your brain and your genomes, even if you for some time open those corners, have you seen people fall back into these so familiar patterns, mainly because the world around you want to push you back where they know you?
This is such a great question. And I love this question because, like you said, the influence of the world. Now, I've seen people, most of my people, because I'm not only doing the healing, I'm also giving them the tools for continuing to grow their own consciousness, their own conscious awareness. Most people will be off and running. I won't hear from them for some time. they may come back later, but it's not so much that they've fallen back as they have maybe a new challenge in their life, and they know that this helps them handle it more efficiently and powerfully than before. So they just want the support of it. I get that more often than someone really slipping back.
And have you had the experience that you say you have this woman and she's had from the childhood and whatnot, and now you help her to free herself and now just getting stronger? Have you seen struggle in relationship through, like, one person is changing and maybe the husband is not ready to have a new wife who is not maybe as cleaning every day and everything and just pleasing him all the time? Maybe now she want to go out for a drink with her friends and he's like, what, where, what's happening now?
That does happen all the time. And when that happens, what usually goes on is they come to me next. Because that spouse who has changed says, oh, you need to go see her. And it's true, because they're not going to stop growing. You know, we're not supposed to stop growing. And sometimes there are people in our lives who pull us down. But when they're on this new level, they're no longer willing to be pulled down. So they'll say, you know what, I'm feeling so much better. I think you should go too. And then they'll send them my way. I get about 7 clients per client on average, because they tell their people come to me too.
Makes a lot of sense. That I don't think it's basically hardly any other way, right? If you're clear with a husband or clear with a wife, and they change so dramatically in such a short term, it's very hard to digest for the partner. So they need a bit of a support.
Absolutely, because they had this dynamic before. You know, we did this kind of dance before, and now you're not dancing with me. Well, you know, what's going on? And it's very uncomfortable. Absolutely.
It's one of the big reasons why people divorce in the first place. If after whatever time, short or long, one person dramatically changes, I don't know, new job opportunity or certain starting to travel or whatever. These are the classic things where people just can't handle it. As you said, they learn the dance, they learn the moves, they're comfortable with him, and all of a sudden, the other one don't want to dance anymore. And that clearly creates a lot of friction.
It does, but it's only able to break it if we aren't adaptable. So we're supposed to be adaptable. And so those are opportunities for us to be more authentic with what's really going on and to make adjustments for each other. And then that's, again, we have the ability in our consciousness to grow into the kind of people who can do that, but it's not taught very, prolifically. But adaptability is a huge strength in a relationship, because ultimately, the old vows of till death do us part, maybe, but life is teaching us all the way along. Both partners are learning and becoming. So a marriage should be built on principles that align with life. For example, if my spouse deeply, profoundly, truly wants to pursue a dream, and it doesn't exactly go in the direction that my deeply, profoundly, true desires go, then what do we do, right? I want him to have it because I love him and it seems true to him. And I want me to have what I want and it seems true to me. So that's a time where we come up together in this difficult conversation. We go, how do we make these things work? Well, we can either be apart for a while and have a distance relationship and try that out and see how that works, or we could take turns. I'll support you, you support me. But the conversation has to happen. We have to have those difficult, uncomfortable conversations and wrestle it out and try to figure that out. And some people don't want to be uncomfortable.
For sure. Because we're also trained in this modern convenient world. We order it today, tomorrow it comes at the door, and we don't care how it came there. It's just ding dong. And if you just think about what is involved to put any kind of product halfway around the world to be there in 24 hours, we'd say, no, thank you. I can wait a couple of days. Come on, it's not that urgent.
Exactly. So we are being trained opposite of, on a human level, what truly makes meaning.
Right. I mean, if I have a driver who has, I don't know, a 16-hour shift at some places, I mean, in America, maybe it's a bit better with the, but there are places in Europe where these guys who bring you the stuff on the door, I mean, they have horrible conditions and, no one cares. They're complaining, you're not there yet. I'm
Yes.
always thinking, I mean, can you imagine the life of these people? I mean, give them a slack. I mean, come on, how urgent is it?
I know. There's a great,
But we lost this.
yeah, yes. It's important to,
And on the other hand, I have a friend who is actually a delivery guy, and he says there are some people who give him like, I don't know, $50 just a tip
yeah,
for, hey, thank you for bringing it, man, like Merry Christmas and stuff. And he's like, shocked.
yeah.
And so you've got both. You got
You do.
both.
You do. But the system shouldn't be built on them needing $50 tips to make a living that they can.
Don't get me started, but I'm a hardcore. The problem is with me, I'm a hardcore capitalist. I mean, I'm multi-company founder, and nevertheless, I got this crazy idea to pay my people somewhat fair, and I got this crazy idea of making somewhat fair conditions. And I'm a hardcore capitalist. I mean, I'm out there with the best of them, but it doesn't mean I'm a complete prick.
That's right. Oh, that's right. Thank goodness.
I mean, I don't get it. I mean, when is enough enough? That's one of my main questions. I understand public companies, there is never enough but are privately owned companies. I mean, at some point, enough is enough. I mean, how much stuff should I accumulate? I mean, I'm anyway haunted by all the damn stuff. I mean,
I know exactly what you mean. We could do a whole other podcast episode on that.
well, for sure. All right, so we're staying on subject. Do not worry. The last 4 or 5 minutes we have from our hour.
Yeah.
I'm zooming out, so to say, because I always like to look ahead, and I always to see what's the greater value for the society. That's what I ask all of my podcast guests at the end to see if more people go to therapy, if more people do come to you, and let's say 40-50% of the population is finally engaging, how do you see the society shift
I love that question. My practice is shift hypnosis. My podcast is Shift is Happening. The shift that happens is we come to a higher level of awareness. First, we become aware of how to manage our own feelings, thoughts, and actions that align with what we believe in, what we love. Then our lives align with that. And then there's a higher level above that where we understand that we are each other. We're all human. We are in it together. If I hurt you, I hurt me. And it changes the way we treat each other, speak to each other, work together, problem solve. That changes our community, right? So it just raises the consciousness of our families, our workplace, our community. And it really, even in a microcosm of a couple, if one person raises their awareness, like this couple we mentioned earlier where the spouse gets uncomfortable, well, the one who's grown is now speaking a different language. It's not an insulting language. It's not getting caught up in drama language. It is that, I am feeling better. I've changed some things and I know this would benefit you too. And I'd love for you to find out for yourself too. And then they rise together. Then their children are in an entirely different household where when there is conflict, we know how to work through that together. There's never an enemy. There's not me against you. There's just something in the middle that we have to figure out. And if humanity gets to that level of awareness, we don't live in the same world at all. Does that answer your question well enough?
Absolutely. This is such a beautiful wish. And there are so many subjects we didn't talk about. Past life regression is something that's very popular. The whole better understanding how hypnosis with the brain and all these functionalities at a different kind of consciousness and how they might interfere with your work. Because when stuff comes from the past life, that can also be imprinted and things like that. So there's a lot of technicalities within the wider field of the brain, and you are basically working in the brain.
Yes.
There's a lot that we have not talked about, but that's how mean I am. So people have to come back for next round.
That sounds good to me. I look forward to that conversation.
Well, Sheila, thank you so very much. I hope it's been a good idea to get people motivated to go to therapy and not to be afraid and to see the benefits versus the advantages. I hope that's what we did today, and a little bit people be self-aware and a little bit make them see the need for the change and how actually people will slow down, right?
Yes.
Because if you would have asked me the same question, I would have maybe said that people might slow down and actually discover that they were happy all along. And if you stop chasing it, you maybe figure out you already a long time have found it. You just put it somewhere in the closet with 1,000 other things and you're just forgotten it's there.
I love that.
And that's my wish at the end.
Yeah.
So thank you so very much for joining this podcast. All information, of course, are down there. And I wish you a wonderful, it's 9:00, so a wonderful rest of the day.
All right. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to talk with you.